Come on! I told you to put your lower body into it!
Zane shouts.
Look, dude, why am I even doing this? This is pointless. And do we really need to be out in the middle of a forest? I mean, where even are we? It's been 3 days since I agreed to help Zane take down the agency. He gave me time to rest, but since yesterday he's been teleporting us to this one particular forest with a good landscape of structure. But I could never guess where we actually were. He's had me do training to prepare for them. I don't even know who them is. Being in this new world and having these powers is so weird.
It isn't pointless. This is important. Do you really expect to be able to beat anyone from the agency if you can't fight?
Zane says.
And for the record, we're just south of the city.
Zane's eyes narrow as he observes my lackluster attempts. We stand in the woods with trees circling around us, the air heavy with anticipation. The twigs and leaves beneath my feet feel unforgiving as I struggle to maintain the proper stance.
Focus, Kian. This is not just about physical strength. It's about precision, control, and utilizing your entire body as a weapon.
Zane advises, his voice holding determination. He demonstrates a series of intricate movements, his body flowing seamlessly from one deadly strike to another. It's like watching a deadly dance, a lethal ballet where every movement is intentional and purposeful. I can't help but feel a twinge of intimidation, wondering if I'll ever be able to replace such fluidity.
Now, your turn. Remember, the key is to harness your inner energy, channel it through your limb, and strike with intention.
Zane instructs, gesturing for me to attempt the sequence. I take a deep breath, trying to absorb his guidance. The first few attempts are awkward and uncoordinated. My limbs feel like they belong to someone else, and the movements lack the grace Zane effortlessly demonstrated. Frustration is starting to build within me. Zane adjusts his stance, his eyes focused on mine.
Boxing isn't just about brute strength, Kian. It's about balance, technique. Now show me that jab again, but this time, engage your core.
I shake my head, frustrated. I still don't see why I need to learn all this. Can't I just use my powers to deal with them? Plus, why don't you just teach me your style of fighting? Zane steps closer, his voice stern.
You can't solely rely on your powers, Kian. They might be strong, but technique and skill are just as crucial. It's always good to have a backup plan. As for me not teaching you my fighting style,
Adjusting his shirt.
you're nowhere close to ready for it. You think it's easy to do what I do?
He demonstrates the jab effortlessly, showcasing the fluidity of the movement.
See? Now try again.
I nod reluctantly and attempt to mimic the jab. My first few tries are clumsy, lacking the grace Zane effortlessly displays. He stops me midway and corrects my form. We continue the training session, going through various boxing techniques, jabs, hooks, uppercuts, and clinches. Zane emphasizes the importance of balance, footwork, and timing. As the sweat starts to bead on my forehead, I begin to grasp the fundamentals, albeit slowly. After a particularly challenging sequence, Zane steps back and wipes the sweat from his brow.
You're improving, Kian, but you've got a long way to go. We'll get there.
I catch my breath and nod, a newfound determination in my eyes. Yeah, let's keep going. I want to be ready for whatever comes our way. Zane smirks.
That's the spirit. Now, let's move on to the clinch techniques. They might come in handy when you're up against someone with more strength than you.
Zane begins to demonstrate the clinch techniques, showcasing the art of controlling an opponent at close quarters. As he guides me through the movements, I can't help but notice a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. He decides we're going to call it for now. I nod, grateful for the break. As we walk back through the forest, I can't help but reflect on the journey that brought me here. From the mundane routine of everyday life to a world of hidden powers and secret agencies, my reality has undergone a radical transformation. The moon hangs in the night sky, casting a soft glow on the path ahead. As we make our way back to the storage depot, I can't shake the feeling that every step I take is bringing me closer to a destiny I never chose, but must face nonetheless. Zane opens a portal and I walk through into the storage depot. Never in my life did I think I'd be walking through portals like it's just a normal thing, I say. Zane shrugs.
You get used to it.
He turns to me as he's setting things down.
Now look, since we started training, you've been making great progress. Like really good progress for someone who's never done any fighting before in their life.
And? I say somewhat cockily.
And that's great, but we are losing time fast. Luckily, we have some more time. I have a hunch that Goro's been taking off the mission to kill you by the higher-ups.
Zane says. You really think they would have taken him off of it? I ask.
He has a temper and you made him angry. I bet the main reason they took him off the job is because he's angry.
Zane says. Angry? Angry about what? I ask. Zane raises his eyebrow.
What do you think? He couldn't kill a kid who had just gotten powers and has zero resonance. You think his reputation is going to stay the same after something like this? In any case, it's good for us because the other people at the agency aren't as good as Goro. But they might send people in numbers.
I've been meaning to ask, why worry so much? You say Goro's the strongest, but it looked like you were doing just fine against him, I say. His expression fades to seriousness.
The only reason I even got past him was because of the shock factor and my combat skills. In a real fight between us, I would lose. If it wasn't for this,
Waving his shoulder on the side with his missing arm.
I might be able to take Goro if the cards were in my favor.
So how much time do you think that bought us? Goro not coming after us anymore. He ponders.
Well, I think that bought us a couple weeks, to be honest.
I look at him surprised. Really? I thought you said they have more strong agents.
Well, they do, but in terms of catching us, they are matched up against the worst possible person. Me. Now, I think their game plan they're going to go with is to stay quiet and patient. They're going to plan and wait for their time to strike, and trust me on one thing. Once they see that opening to take, they will capitalize on it.
Zane says. So what's the plan in the meantime? Zane looks at me sternly.
Keep training.
For a whole week I've been working on nothing but more advanced versions of what I've already been working on. Footwork, jabs, hooks, uppercuts, and clinches. Zane really emphasized footwork. In fact, he wouldn't let me practice any of the other things until I managed to dodge one of his full-blown attacks. Every day he would up the number in the amount of attacks I needed to dodge. I won't lie in saying that I got the shit kicked out of me multiple times a day. The best part of my day I looked forward to was getting back to the storage depot to have a nice hot shower after all of the training. Now, I can dodge around 8 of his attacks in one session, and 3 of them in a row. Compared to how many attacks he threw at me though, the numbers weren't great. Every session was so draining, but I could feel myself getting faster and getting more balance. Soon enough, he came up to me with a weird request.
Kian, you've been making good, steady progress, and I'd say we're going to put aside footwork for now.
He scratches the back of his head.
I really want to teach you something that could help you a lot in a real fight.
Zane says. I look at him confused. What is it? With a slight grin on his face.
Center of gravity.
Huh?
Center of gravity. If you learn how to control your center of gravity in a fight and use it consistently and effectively, your ceiling of a fighter and resonance user is,
He paused for a moment.
for lack of a better term, exponential.
I look at him like he's a crazy person. So, how would I do that exactly? Zane adjusts his body, clearly excited about the prospect of teaching me this new skill.
Alright, Kian. This is going to be a bit unconventional, but bear with me. We're going to do some exercises that will challenge your balance and help you gain control over your center of gravity. Let's start with something simple. Stand on one leg.
I lift my leg, trying to maintain balance. It feels awkward, and I wobble a bit before steadying myself.
Good, good. Now close your eyes.
Zane instructs. Closing my eyes, I feel a bit disoriented. The forest sounds, the rustling leaves, everything seems more pronounced. Zane's voice cuts through the ambient noise.
Now, focus the center of your body. Imagine a point right in the middle, just below your navel. That's your center of gravity. Feel it. Embrace it. This is where your balance comes from.
I nod, attempting to concentrate on that imaginary point. It's challenging, but Zane's guidance keeps me anchored. We spend what feels like an eternity in this simple exercise. My leg starts to ache, and I open my eyes.
Good start. Now, let's add some movement.
Zane suggests. He guides me through a series of slow and deliberate movements, incorporating kicks, sweeps, and spins. It's a dance of controlled motion, and with each step, I try to connect with that elusive center of gravity. It's like chasing a fleeting idea, always just out of reach. As the hours pass, Zane introduces more complex exercises, balancing on one leg while dodging imaginary attacks, crouching low and rising with precision, and even attempting flips and spins. The forest becomes our training ground, filled with the echoes of my attempts and Zane's patient guidance. There are moments of frustration, where I stumble and fall, but Zane pushes me to get back up and try again. Days turn into nights, and the training becomes more intense. Zane incorporates his teleportation abilities, forcing me to maintain control even when the ground beneath my feet changes. It's an exhausting process, both physically and mentally. Another week passes, and I begin to notice a subtle shift. The movements that once felt foreign start to become more natural. There's a newfound fluidity in my actions, a connection to that elusive center of gravity. It's far from mastery, but it's progress. Zane gives an approving nod.
You're getting there. Now let's put it to the test. Time for a bit of sparring.
We move to a clearing in the forest, and Zane takes a defensive stance. As I approach, I try to incorporate the lessons into my movements. The exchanges are clumsy, sloppy, and reckless. Nothing but failed attempts. I catch my breath, sweat dripping down my face, exhausted by all the failures. Zane assured me that this might be too big of a jump for me right now, but that the failures were a testament to how hard I had been working. The forest, once a daunting training ground, now feels like a place of accomplishment. The echoes of our training sessions linger in the air, a testament to the dedication it took. Night finally came and we set up a campfire.
One more thing.
Zane says. As I look at Zane, his relaxed demeanor contrasting with the sharp intensity in his eyes, I can't help but wonder about the mystery that surrounds him. So Zane, this is totally random, but when you saved me from Goro and he looked at you, why did he call you Janus? Zane avoids eye contact. The crackling flames cast shadows on his face.
That was the name I went by at the agency. The name they gave me. Janus. The Greek god of doors or gateways. They thought it seemed fitting, so they went for it. I went by it for a long, long time, but not anymore.
Curiosity burning, I press further. Could you tell me why? He gazes deeper into the flames, the warmth and light flickering across his face.
It's not me.
The air between us thickens with unspoken history, and for the first time, I sense a vulnerability in Zane's stoic demeanor. The revelation hangs in the air, creating an atmosphere pregnant with untold stories and hidden emotions. Zane cuts the tension, standing up around dirt with a long stick.
So before I gave you a brief rundown on what resonance is, but now I'm going to teach you on how to use it, how to control it. A full in-depth breakdown.
Right now?
Yes, right now.
Zane draws a rough sketch in the dirt.
Alright, Kian, let's get into it. Resonance, as you know, is our energy source. But what I didn't mention earlier is what it powers. Affinities.
What's an affinity? I ask.
An affinity is the kind of powers and techniques someone can work with. My thing is portals. I channel my resonance into a portal-related move. Most people inherit their affinities, while others can even manifest one of their own. Though, that's rare.
Zane adds with a scoff. What if you don't have an affinity? I ask.
That's where it's a lot more limited. People that have no affinity definitely have a low ceiling they can reach, whereas people with affinities have a much higher ceiling.
Zane sits up.
People that have no affinity can do very generic things, such as amplification of physical traits or use the resonance to create bursts of energy. But there is a big downside. When you don't have an affinity to pour that resonance into, and you use these type of techniques, it is very abusive to your body. In fact, if you amplify too much resonance to your body with no affinity, it can be fatal.
He adds.
People with affinities cannot use resonance for anything else other than their affinity. Accounting even that, affinities are still superior to amplification, especially with someone who has mastered it.
I sat there amazed. Alright, so what's my affinity? And how much resonance do I have?
Yeah, about that.
He sighs in hesitation and puts his hand on the back of his head.
When I look at you, you have no resonance.
Zane says. I sat there taking it in. That's not normal, is it? Zane shakes his head.
No, it's not. It's impossible. Even a regular person has some. I've never seen someone with none.
I absorb the revelation, staring at the dirt as if searching for answers. So, everything we've done, was it all pointless? Zane's hand on my shoulder tightens, offering reassurance.
No, it wasn't. We just need to figure out why. I know someone who can help us. We should talk to him.
Zane's eyes flicker away for a moment, returning with a quick, almost imperceptible shift in expression. A weak smile that doesn't even quite reach his eyes. Zane leans in close to my ear and begins to whisper.
Don't make any sudden movements or noises when I say this. They are here, in the trees behind us.
A sense of overwhelming anxiety and fear rushes over me. My heart pounds in my chest as Zane's words send a shiver down my spine. The once familiar sounds of the forest now become ominous whispers, and the shadows between the trees take on a threatening presence. Panic sets in, my mind racing with questions and uncertainties. Zane's grip tightens on my shoulder, a silent signal to remain calm. I try to steady my breathing, but the fear persists. Who's here? The agents? I whisper, my voice barely audible. Zane nods subtly, his eyes scanning the surroundings.
Stay quiet, Kian. If they notice you getting panicked, they won't know. We know.
The darkness of the forest feels like it's closing in, and every rustle of leaves becomes a potential threat. I strain my senses, trying to detect any sign of their presence. Fear and frustration intertwine, creating a knot in my stomach. Zane's hand signals for me to crouch low, and we move silently towards a cluster of bushes, attempting to conceal ourselves. The tension in the air is palpable as we huddle in the foliage, the night amplifying the sense of vulnerability. My mind races with thoughts of Goro and the other mysterious agents from the agency. Are they closing in? The idea of being hunted in this unknown world amplifies the panic within me. Zane places a finger over his lips, urging me to maintain silence. The seconds tick by like hours as we wait in the shadows, the only sound being the distant howl of a nocturnal creature. I steal a glance at Zane, his eyes focused and alert. There's a silent communication between us, a shared understanding that our survival hinges on staying hidden. My muscles ache from the tension, and beads of sweat form on my forehead. Suddenly, a faint sound reaches my ears. Footsteps approaching from behind. My breath catches, and I press myself further into the foliage. Zane's hand tightens on my shoulder. He throws me like a toy to the side, and I feel a gust of air blow towards my face. In mid-air, I catch a glimpse of two figures rushing towards Zane.